Hey, it's Mailbag Wednesday, getting into a bunch of fan-centric questions about the Southsiders. What can the White Sox do to avoid another rebuild? How will rule changes like banning the shift and the pitch clock affect the White Sox this season? Are the off-season grades and early win total predictions warranted? And can Oscar Colas be an elite player in the American League in 2023?
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, really appreciate you letting me steal some of your time to talk off-season White Sox. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The White Sox haven't had a Rookie of the Year recipient since Jose Abreu. Can Oscar Colas make a run at the award this year? It's been a miserable offseason for the White Sox, but has it really been as bad as some folks are saying? And is it time for the White Sox to prepare themselves for another rebuild? Hey, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Look for another episode on Thursday this week. We'll be back up to 5 episodes once spring training gets underway. Just a few weeks away. Thank you so much for those YouTube subscriptions. Appreciate you passing it along to other White Sox fans in your life. We got about 2 weeks until pitchers and catchers report, position players a few days after that. If you're participating in the World Baseball Classic, that timeline might be a bit different. Roughly 8 weeks until opening day, and we just found out that March 30th game, that opening day, White Sox in Houston, that's going to be an evening game, 6:08 Central Time. And of course, we as Sox fans are still waiting on that big trade that will most likely never happen. So it's Mailbag Wednesday, and I've been getting some great questions in throughout the week since our last mailbag. Now, this question here, this has been talked about quite a bit, and actually, it started getting whispered, I would say, towards the end of this past season. It's an unfortunate question, but it's been brought up recently by a couple other fans talking about this. How do the White Sox avoid another rebuild? And I can't believe, we're thinking about that. We're talking about that. Obviously, the easy answer is to win. I mean, if the White Sox can get their act together and they can, hit on all the levels that they want to hit this upcoming season, get everybody healthy for a majority of the season and return to accustomed levels and all that nonsense, then we're in pretty good shape. But boy, it's been over 6 years, and all the White Sox have to show for it is a couple of playoff wins. And I'll be honest. I was one of the first, to throw it in Cubs fans' faces when they only went to one World Series, and they won that World Series. But they did go to a bunch of championship games, and I feel like they were in the NLCS for multiple years. And but I thought, wow, you only got one World Series out of that, and only one appearance, and here we are as Sox fans we don't even have a playoff series win to show for what's been going on. And I can't believe that, we're really thinking about this in a serious way. It was whispers. You're kind of starting to get a little scared. You had the Kopech injury years ago, and you just kind of felt like this has been coming over the last several seasons. Failure to land a superstar, namely the whole Manny Machado, Bryce Harper thing years ago. The Sox inability to fill blatant holes. I mean, they announce their needs at the beginning of every offseason, and they just fail to address them. The La Russa hire, the Moncada, Robert, Eloy, not only all the injuries, but the failure to live up to the hype. And then the draft picks didn't amount to anything. The catcher position right now is a huge issue. I don't know if Grandal can really be your full-time catcher for this season. I don't know if the Sox organization feels that way, or if they're going to lean just heavy on his bat if he can get his legs right for that. So, of course, winning will solve a lot of things, but what if it doesn't? I think April and May are going to be extremely important this upcoming season. My co-host of the weekly White Sox podcast that I'm involved in, Good Guys Talk Back, my co-host Pat Hester had a wonderful point recently that April and May this season are critical. I mean, it could shape how the rest of the few years go for this organization. Say the Sox do not get off to a very good start in April and May. They're floundering. They're falling back in the AL Central. But you have guys that, like Dylan Cease, maybe Tim Anderson, Lucas Giolito, that have returned a little bit and are putting up good numbers, favorable numbers. Looks like they've gotten themselves right. What do the White Sox do at the trade deadline? I don't see the White Sox re-signing Lucas Giolito. That just hasn't been their MO over the years, retaining a starting pitching. So did they make a case out of Lucas Giolito? I doubt it, but so that means you'd have to, get rid of him. You'd have to try to rebuild on the fly. I mean, what's your long-term plan for Tim Anderson? I know we don't have to really address that, but do you sell high on him if he's having a great year, but the team is not through May and into June? What about Dylan Cease? I can't even fathom giving away starting pitching and not getting the most out of what we have here with Cease and Kopech and Giolito and even Lynn. But, it is what it is right now with this team. That very well could be something that the front office has to address. And do you even believe that they'll be able to get it right? It didn't seem like we got it right the first time around. Rebuilding, on the fly is understandable, but another 2016, I can't stomach it. And I know I'm not the only one. There's so many Sox fans that are already done with this team after what happened in 2022 and what has happened in this offseason. And you got single game tickets going on sale on Thursday, February 2nd. I have yet to interact with somebody that is going to be in the waiting line, for those tickets, gobbling up, maybe some of the promotions and stuff. But I think there's a lot of fans just waiting to see how this team performs this summer, especially if they're going to invest more of their time and money. So you want to think about, some individuals, somebody we highlighted in the previous episode, Colson Montgomery. Is Montgomery someone like Noah Schultz, Oscar Colas, Lenine Sosa? Are they the core of the next rebuild, if there is to be one? I mean, that's the big worry. How to avoid it? Hey, simply play with some urgency, stay healthy, return to accustomed levels, and win this season. And that's how you can avoid it. How about these rule changes that are coming into effect in 2023? Amber, really appreciate the questions and the support and the listenership Great questions you sent in. Going to highlight on the pitch clock and the shift. That's going to affect everybody in so many different ways. I'm someone that's a bit of a baseball purist. I didn't like when they started putting the major league logo on the back of the baseball caps, let alone the new era logo on the side of the caps. I'd like to see baseball stay the same. I think the pitch clock is going to affect, relievers, starters, namely a guy like Joe Kelly, the human rain delay, I've called him. He is definitely going to have to make some adjustments, and so will everybody else. Dylan Cease, he's not a get the ball and throw it type of guy. I think our pitching staff will benefit from watching some old videos of Mark Burley if they haven't already, or even Johnny Cueto from last year. He got the ball and he threw it. Trusted his catcher and his instincts, what he wanted to do against a hitter. I think pitchers and hitters, everybody really will be making adjustments. You've got so many hitters that have their routines, just like pitchers, adjusting the batting gloves and the helmet and the jersey and all that kind of stuff is going to have to be reimagined and altered. It's going to be uncomfortable, I think, to many because of the different quirks or patterns that they have. But I'm looking forward to quicker games. I am against the shift. I feel like the defense, you should be able to set up any way you want, and an offense needs to adjust. But I get why it's being done. And guys like Grandal and Sheets will benefit greatly, I think, offensively. James Fegan of The Athletic, love James Fegan. He did not sugarcoat anything in his recent assessment of the Chicago White Sox offseason. I'm going to tell you why. His answers, they were so refreshing. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. Right now, I believe the over-under for Super Bowl 57 is 49.5. And an interesting, somewhat of a prop bet, I guess, points to be scored in the first minute of play. That's at plus 4,000. Interesting bet there. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockdown to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So this is the season here, just a few weeks away before pitchers and catchers report. And, everything is supposed to be rosy and optimistic. And we've got a clean slate. It's a brand new year. Anything can happen. And I'm still trying to hold on to those feelings. But you're also getting to a point where you have a lot of different publications that are going to be coming out with projected win total for teams and what was the offseason grade for teams. And The Athletic did that very recently. And James Fegan had the write-up for the Chicago White Sox, which is appropriate. So the questions from Danny here were, do I agree with James Fegan's offseason grade? And how about FanDuel's 83.5 win projection? Thank you, Danny, for writing in. So James Fegan gave the White Sox an F, the only team in this athletic report card to receive an F. And this is what James Fegan wrote up about the White Sox offseason. There was a litany of supplementary ways the White Sox could improve the roster, but their primary needs were left fielder, second base, and filling the last spot of their rotation. Currently, they're lined up to rely on internal options for second base, and the starting pitcher they signed is the subject of a league investigation into stomach-turning domestic violence and child abuse allegations, bringing disgrace upon a franchise that has had too many stories of personnel misconduct in recent years. They probably can't expect him to cover many innings either, given where things currently stand. The Andrew Benintendi signing is good, and that's James Fegan. Wow. I think it was refreshingly honest. It was a review that was not altered due to possible pushback from the front office. Fegan will absolutely have to run into these people and request interviews throughout the season. And you don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but James Fegan gave an honest answer and a very fan-centric answer. Honestly, I love this part here. Currently, they're lined up to rely on internal options for second base, and the starting pitcher they signed is the subject of a league investigation into stomach-turning domestic violence and child abuse allegations, bringing disgrace upon a franchise that has had too many stories of personal misconduct in recent years. He hit it right on the head. And that Clevinger thing, it's not like that was forced upon the White Sox. That happened, as we've talked about here on Lockdown, and other folks have talked about it. You know this. You were following along. That happened early in the offseason. They went out and got Clevinger, and they were excited about that. They wanted to be proactive on that, and they were. And I think James Fegan was accurate in that assessment. Let's call it like it is. The Sox once again have failed to address so many of their major holes. However, I will say that the Benintendi signing was good. I like that signing. It answers, not only a left fielder, but we've got the lefty bat. Hopefully that wrist, that hand of his is healthy. So maybe a D-. Maybe you could have thought D-, but I have no problem with James Fegan giving the White Sox an F for what happened this offseason. Now the FanDuel, the 83.5 win total projection by FanDuel. Look, that seems a little low to me, but the reality is that the Sox were an incomplete team last year. There were injuries galore, mismanaged, and horrendous performances from so many different players. It's a tough sample size to base a win total off of. With health and a return to accustomed levels, the Sox should be more than just 2 or 3 wins better than last year. The Clevinger mess definitely affects the predictions, though. I think the starting, pitching staff has got a bunch of question marks, really. But Benintendi and Eloy Jimenez at DH, not right field, at DH, should help the cause. I think of the big X factor is going to be the loss of Jose Abreu. And if Andrew Vaughn gets off to a slow start, if he can't shoulder the load, it is going to be, and Jose Abreu just absolutely starts off on fire to almost prove the White Sox wrong. Like, you should have never done this. You should have never let me walk. How that all plays out will be interesting. But 83.5, I think it's kind of low, but these are just numbers that are being thrown out right now. Again, I think they should be better than 2 or 3 wins. This is from Tyler. What do you look for during spring training? Appreciate the question, Tyler. Whether you are going to be there live in person or you're able to watch spring training games, and hopefully there's a decent amount of games that are televised. That has always been a bugaboo of mine. Put the games on TV. Give us more than just 5 or 6 games. They're on the radio quite often, especially if you've got the app, but TV, few and far between. There should be far more games televised if you're going to build this game up. But if you are lucky enough to go there and be there in person, or you're watching it closely of whatever they're going to show you on TV, and maybe you're following the articles and all that stuff on a daily basis, which I'm sure you are. I'm looking for defense. The Sox were horrible with defense last year, and chemistry is going to be something that I'd also like to pay attention to with this second base battle. Tim Anderson's going to be your shortstop. So what's the chemistry between guys like to combinations like Anderson Gonzalez, Anderson Sosa? Is Garcia really going to be in that mix? Chemistry for sure. And when Grifol decides to play some of these guys, what opportunities does he give him as spring training rolls on? Little things like hitting the cutoff man. Like, how prepared will this team be? You can watch some of those little things early on, those little mistakes that were so apparent in 2022, backing bases up, base running in general, seeing if you could take advantage of an outfield arm. How prepared will they be? You can see that. You can see that. The second base job and the right field job, going to be watching those, closely. Again, hopefully it's more of a Oscar Colas, Gavin Sheets situation, not Eloy Jimenez. And of course, pitchers are going to be working on all different kinds of things. There might be just outings where they're just looking at spotting fastballs, inside, outside, up and down. Maybe they're just going to be working on, their changeup or a secondary pitch or some other pitch that they've been experimenting with, and not necessarily competing in the way we hope that they would be during the season. But I'm seeing if they can achieve their goal and how they respond, afterwards in their next outing. Maybe a bullpen session, what Ethan Katz is saying to us, whatever nuggets he gives us about what guys are hitting on and what guys still need to work on. Hitters will be working on, things as well. Again, getting adjusted to the new rules, without the shift, with the pitch clock. I think this is your opportunity to really try to get assimilated as quickly as possible in whatever way you can, so you can hit the ground running on March 30th. The World Baseball Classic will disrupt things as several players from the White Sox will be off playing competitive baseball. I'm hoping that helps, that they're prepared for March 30th. But again, players getting acclimated to the new rules, the little things, the defense, and just seeing how Pedro Grifol sets things up, how he manages different players in different innings. And, again, the second base and right field jobs are going to be really interesting in my mind. If Eloy Jimenez gets his way, Oscar Colas will not even have a chance to prove himself. But I'm going to tell you why Colas will not only get his moment, but how he can thrive in 2023. More on that in a moment. So this from Nathan. Thank you, Nathan. Does Oscar Colas have a shot at Rookie of the Year? So FanDuel has got Oscar Colas at plus 1,400. If you're into betting him right now, eighth best odds on FanDuel. Keith Law recently, I don't think he even put him in the top 100 prospects. Depends on if he adjusts quickly and if he plays. If Oscar Colas can adjust to what pitchers are trying to do to him, and he's gonna slump. He's gonna struggle. But if he's not trying to do too much, and he takes what the pitcher's giving them, knowing that his power will come along, he'll start being able to hit, all areas of the field. But I have a weird feeling that he could try to, outplay. He really wants to impress, right, in Glendale, Arizona. That's understandable. But he also needs to stay within himself. And I hope he's got people that he can rely on that could talk to him in those moments of, hey, look, you're out here to compete. We know what you can do. That's why you're here. That's why everybody's excited about you. Just show us. And Obviously, he needs the opportunities this 2023. So if he can win the job and he's your everyday starting right fielder, and he actually plays, a majority of the season, that's obviously important when it comes to this award. I think he might have an outside chance. It's not a good chance at all. I was taking a look at Rodriguez last year for Seattle. He won the 2022 Rookie of the Year, AL Rookie of the Year, of course. And Rodriguez played in 132 games last season for the Mariners, slash 284, 345, and 485 with 21 home runs, 62 RBIs. Those are some nice numbers for any player, let alone a rookie. So you say he's a center fielder. So you say, is that the line to beat? Numbers similar to that. Does Colas get into that area of 20 plus home runs? Boy, if he can get there, wow, we might have to readjust that projected win total for sure. Last White Sox Rookie of the Year, of course, Jose Abreu, 145 games in that magical 2014 season, 145 games as a rookie. Abreu slashed 317, 385, 581 that year. His slugging and OPS plus led all of Major League Baseball. Had 36 home runs, 107 RBIs, fourth in MVP voting. Of course, Abreu was playing professional baseball in Cuba before coming over to the MLB. But still, impressive numbers in that rookie campaign in 2014. So my hope for Oscar Colas is to not even be thinking about that. Look, how can I help this team? How can I just be serviceable? My hope is that the core players, the White Sox core players, they do stay healthy. They do return to accustomed levels. And Oscar Colas is one of the guys that can kind of, hide out in plain sight and just do what he needs to do in the outfield, to help this team defensively. I think the offense will come, but not trying to do too much. Adapt, learn from his experience, and manage through the lulls, because there's going to be lulls. Who are the mentors going to be? I've talked about this. Jose Abreu would be an excellent choice. That's not the case. Who steps up and helps Oscar Colas through this? And what happens if he doesn't win the job? Then you're not even thinking Rookie of the Year. You're just thinking, like, how can this guy provide for the White Sox? And I start thinking about Yermin Mercedes, not necessarily apples to apples, but when things started going south for Yermin, and there were a lot of things that happened in that, he lost it, right? He just couldn't get it back. He was his own worst enemy in ways. And you don't want, when Colas, if he hits rock bottom, which he's going to hit a bottom, for him to just, go down a dark path. Hang in there. This happens. This is the ebb and flow of a young star in Major League Baseball. So my hope again is that he could just be serviceable and help out this team. But boy, if he plays consistently, he wins that starting job, and things start coming easy to him, maybe he is somebody to look out for in the AL Rookie of the Year. Really appreciate all the questions and comments and predictions. No shortage of stuff to go through this week. Again, it's lockedonsox@gmail.com. We'll do another mailbag next Wednesday. Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, get those questions and comments in now for next week's mailbag. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. I'll make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on the next episode, I'll be continuing to look at offseason scenarios and how they will impact the White Sox in 2023 as we inch closer to spring training. Really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski, and until next time, go Sox.